Ladies and gentlemen, man, I need to change where this mic sits, over here or something. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. But obviously by now we are, well, a few weeks into the different changes in season 2. Tressa got changed, nerfed, Cassius got changed, nerfed, right? In my opinion, we're gonna dance around that bush here. But we're here to talk about Tressa today, and it was to the point where they know that the community has some things to say about that. There was like an official survey sent out. I don't know if you can still fill it out. If I can find it, I'll put in the link in the comment section down below. And so you can consider this like the official video feedback for the dev team out there. I don't know if they're gonna watch this stuff. If you watch this as well, you wanna comment your own changes down there, maybe give it a stamp of approval for the comment section. If they do watch it, let's check this stuff out. Now, we all know that Tressa got changed because of her abusive partner in the form of Cassius with his old quest reward for Pop-Eyed Popper of 000 that could stack indefinitely. This has already been nipped in the butt, right? And they've nerfed this card and it cannot stack indefinitely anymore. It stacks 4 times. Tressa was the card generator for the 000 Pop-Eyed Popper quest with her old version of Shadow Reload, which would generate an attack Shadow Dagger every time you were healed by a skill card, regardless of who was healing you there. They decided that on both ends, they wanted no infinite zeros generator basically and no infinite zeros outlet. So they've replaced this Shadow Reload with this one here, the 0 cost Shadow Reload, heal, and then generate 1 advanced Shadow Dagger. And they changed the advanced Shadow Dagger as well. It used to be a 1 cost with retain and retrieve as well, and it had higher damage and would really allow you to pop out some damage, especially in something like Chaos Zero system, whether it's the seasonal stuff and the Chaos manifestations or not. It was a pretty easy way to make sure you had some consistent damage inside of Chaos manifestation, and she doesn't have access to that anymore. So what are the changes that they've really done here? The number one change is that Shadow Reload we just talked about. The other change, the big one here, is they changed to Curse Gouge. This used to be 2 weaken and 2 agony. Now it activates all agony inflicted on the target. We're going to talk about my feelings and thoughts about this freaking card for sure. And then they also touched up some of the vital attacks in addition to changing one of them as well to just give and stack, be an agony stacker for 1 right there as well, instead of the other one, which was like make all of your agony do more damage. They also reworked agony overall. It used to be able to stack indefinitely, and now it can only stack up to 20, and then they take the damage and the stacks are reduced by half. So those are the 3 main changes to Tressa, and I think all of them are absolutely terrible. Now, Tressa identity has always been like this psionic, like sub DPS. I want to generate cards and either use them for damage myself or have someone else, utilize the fact that they are being exhausted. And we had a couple of different ways to do that with her, with the unsheathed dagger as well, in addition to the old Shadow Reload. And now we also have the new advanced Shadow Dagger to try to get in here, generate some 0 cost attack cards to do some damage that way. So let's get on some of the things that we don't like about Tressa. All right, I know, well, spoiler warning. Here's my feedback on Tressa. Now there's a couple big caveats about Tressa. The first one is going to be the rework to the agony mechanic. Used to have infinity caps on there. Every agony would have a 2-turn debuff, and it would do its own damage. It would fall down to 1, and then they'd fall off individually. Now they're all stacked into 1 debuff, 1 agony debuff, and that goes up to 20. So directly just limiting one of her old core builds simply due, number 1, to the limitation that was directly applied to the agony mechanic itself. Now on top of that, unsheathed dagger, we're applying 1 agony at a time now. This was slightly reworked. It has a higher multiplier on it, and I do believe than before, it is trying to force you more into a DPS focused Tressa build, which she'd be like, that's fine. If they want to make her more of a straight damage focused character, that makes more sense. They're not pigeonholing her into like a fixed damage over time character. Okay. You'd say, what payoffs do we have though that are existing for agony now, or damage over time? Now, one of the main ones here, they keep talking about changing potentials for characters, is this one here. It gives you void damage, and then if you build her for damage over time, it gives you more void damage. So now this is just kind of very weird, very strange, because if you're trying to, build for crit chance and crit damage and attack percent, you're kind of avoiding the damage over time build because you're trying to make more use of the higher multipliers on her cards. So you're not going to really want to build for damage over time because there's a direct limitation on damage over time, which is the 20 stacks of Agony. So I think that's a very interesting, well, kerfluffle, right? All of these things contradict each other there. Now, 2 payoffs for stacking Agony. The number one that I like so far as a design philosophy here is to give her a payoff of just using the Agony stacks as like a damage increase for some of her cards. Sadly, though, what we have is it's really only attached to Advanced Shadow Dagger. Advanced Shadow Dagger does do 2 Agony, so it's going to help you apply those Agonies for the damage bonus that this card itself also gives. It has a lower damage multiplier than before, but it also gives you bonus damage for every stack of Agony on the target. 200%, that's pretty sustainable. For a 0 cost, get up to 266% here. That's fine. Can crit with it, get crit damage, works with vulnerable. It is better overall, I think, when you're trying to utilize her outside of Chaos. The one thing I will say about Advanced Shadow Dagger, though, is that inside of Chaos, it used to be a pretty decent option for you to be AP efficient, to be DPS efficient throughout multiple turns. What do I mean by that is you'd have a way to like generate some Shadow Dagger some way with just the normal Shadow Reload that generate like a normal Shadow Dagger that cost 1, to have a much higher multiplier. It hit 2 times, it apply Agony. It did pretty decent damage. It was one of the most AP to damage efficient cards basically in the game if you could get it in your hand. And it also had the ability for you to just retrieve it and retain it. So on turns where like you were drawing cards that had no attack cards in it, you can then use the Advanced Shadow Dagger to do damage, keep pressure up, reduce the incoming damage by killing enemies and use it there. On turns where you had AP for your other characters ready to rock and roll on some of their harder hitting, like super awesome cards, you could just leave that Advanced Shadow Dagger in your hand and use it on a future turn. She doesn't really have access to that inside of Chaos Manifestation anymore. It just doesn't exist because they changed the card. Yeah, sure, it has retain now, but like, cool, I'm gonna retain my 0 cost in my hand so I can hope to stack more Agony before I used my 0 cost. I'm not too sure about that one, Chief. I think maybe what we should looking at here is like remove the retain and give it like exhaust 2 or something. I'm not sure. The payoff just doesn't seem to be that high. The other thing about Agony as a mechanic itself in the other payoff that I absolutely hate is Cursed Gouge. And this is because of how they have this card coded and how it works with the Agony mechanic. Now, here, check this out. Follow my hands, follow my movements here, boys and girls. Let's say on any given turn, you get up to this 20 stacks of Agony cap. Okay, cool. What happens when you end your turn? Not a trick question, right? You end your turn, they take the 20 stacks worth of Agony damage and the stacks now go from 20 to 10. Okay. What happens if I use Curse Gouge on that turn instead? What benefit am I really gaining? So let's say I'm at 20 stacks of Agony. I use Curse Gouge, does the damage, the stacks fall to 10. I end my turn, they take 10 stacks of damage and the stacks fall to 5. Whether you use or do not use Curse Gouge, you still are getting the full 20 stacks of damage. In this example, what Curse Gouge is really doing, taking up a card slot in your deck, taking up a draw slot in the deck, you're getting an extra 10 stacks of Agony damage, 1 turn faster. The only real benefit to Curse Gouge to get the full effect from it is you have to get up to 20 stacks of Agony, cast Curse Gouge, and then get up to 20 stacks of Agony before the turn ends, and then end your turn. In that case, you'll get the full benefit 2 times, 20/20, and then 20 again. Otherwise, you're getting 20/20, whether you're using it or not, you'll still get the 20, and then Curse Gouge is just giving you like an extra 10 stacks of Agony damage. Super cool, amazing. And on top of that, it flies in the face and is, well, pretty anti-synergistic with Shadow Reload's Advanced Shadow Daggers, right? Because this wants you to keep Agony stacks on the enemy. They want you to keep them there. And you say, Josh, well, just cast your Advanced Shadow Daggers, right? And then pop the Curse Gouge. Duh. Well, yeah, sure. Except for now, when I start my turn next turn, I have to go from 5 up to 20 before I cast any of my Shadow Reload's Advanced Shadow Daggers to get the full damage instead of 10 to 20. So it's just super duper inefficient. A lot of the things that are in this structure of Tressa make no sense and are hyper contradictory to each other. Just super bad. Very awful. I feel like you're chipping the enemy down in so many different ways. It just kind of sucks out there. You'd say, oh, but vital attack, Josh. It's got this. And I do actually kind of not hate this for a build that's focused around making as many advanced shadow daggers as possible. And we'll talk about some of the things that she's pretty decent at in this video as well. And that is where this sort of new card benefits from, right? You get one cost, you do 2 to 6 agony a couple of times, you know, you'll stack the agony up and then you just hit them with advanced shadow dagger. That's cool. The downside here is they're making her apparently like super agony focused. And well, this card took the spot of the thing that made your agony do more damage that turn. And then they gave her an agony payoff card in Curse Gouge. What are we doing? Are we locked in now? Are we locking in? Are you starting to see how dumb this shit is? Curse Gouge would make a little bit more sense if we could stack agony faster, lower the damage on some of these, increase the agony amount, use the old vital attack, or just have the new one, keep the 50% agony damage for the turn, detonate it, maybe stack it up with some more shadow daggers, detonate again. You need to pick a way for her to be built. You either want her to be agony or you want her to be DPS. So where does that leave a character like Tressa? All right, now on top of all of the things we already went over, keep in mind that also on top of agony just being directly worse than it was before, they put a hard cap of 20 stacks on it. The payoff cards don't really matter that much. It's harder to stack naturally because of the changes to Shadow Dagger itself, as well as Advanced Shadow Dagger being a little bit more decent, but you only get one copy when you cast Shadow Reload, now in one use per cast of Shadow Reload. On top of that, they also inflated the HP of all of the monsters level 61 and above. We talked about that when the patch notes were released for all of the different characters getting nice little damage bonuses to a lot of their cards there and a lot of their setups. Yeah, it's cool that Shadow Dagger has a slightly higher mod than before, but all of the enemies have higher HP as well. And this is a big detriment to the agony mechanic because on top of it having a hard cap now and a lesser payoff card in the form of vital attack being replaced with, instead of a payoff version, it helps you actually stack the mechanic right to its quickly accessible cap of 20 if you're using this. Guess what? The agony matters less than it did before because the enemies just have higher HP than before. So she's in a kind of broken state, and the only spot that she has is this type of character who is able to use skill cards and generate attack cards. She's basically just a bot for Hugo at this point in time. She's someone who can sort of exist in a team with a build something like this, whether it's this version of Unsheathed Dagger that costs 1, generates 3 daggers and draws a card, or if it's this version of Unsheathed Dagger, which I think is actually going to be a little bit better, which costs 0 to generate 2, you can be extremely AP efficient with your Tressa. None of her stuff can really cost you anything, and she can just kind of not exist in your deck and still sort of farm up the skills and the attack cards that you're utilizing for your Hugo. That's basically where she's at now, though, is an Unsheathed Dagger / Shadow Reload 0 that makes a 0 cost advanced Shadow Dagger bot. But I have to constantly ask myself, is this better than another character that can do a very similar thing? We have access to Chizuru, who just got buffed into the stratosphere, who can now generate AP as well under her own inhibition attack. You can also build something like this. So we have Bound at Dusk, scrap the garbage agony mechanic. Let's get some AP efficiency in there, right, with some Bound at Dusk gameplay style. If you want to have someone who can cast skill cards and generate exhaust cards and do damage, you have this version of Oni Hunt, which allows you to generate 2 moon slashes to hit multiple times, and you can also draw a card if you get this sort of divine. She can run a very similar build to this one that Tressa has access to, except you get bonuses on top of that because you have the exhaust version of Karmic Flames, which works very well with a lot of the exhaust mechanics in Season 2. On top of that, you also have the ability to generate additional attack cards by generating Shadow of the Moons or upgrading the damage when you upgrade it into Shadow of the Moon Plus as well. So I have to ask myself a ton, even though I love Tressa, why would I ever want to use this character? They kind of nipped her in the butt. They were super afraid of Cassius and super afraid of someone who could generate a bunch of zero-cost shadow daggers, that they basically nerfed this character in almost every single way possible, and she can really only hold on to the ability for her to be somewhat valuable on your account if you shove a ton of Divine Epiphany draw cards on every single card in your deck that you're using her with, and have everything cost 0, and then you'd have a somewhat usable character. Like if these unsheathed daggers right here were the 0-cost versions, then I'd have nothing in this deck that would absolutely cost me any AP. And if this also drew me a card, that'd be fantastic. You could also get Curse draw a card as well. But that is almost nearly impossible to get, and even then, we would say that's pretty decent. She has a super niche role, and that is a 5-card, all draw card, all 0-cost Divine Epiphany deck. That is the state that Tressa is in right now, and that is the feedback I'm leaving to the developers. She does not really have any purpose in the game outside of, well, don't let her cards get in my way. You let me know what you think about it down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.